All right. So let's get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Allison Mathews Allen here today with Dr. Crystal Taylor of
Hi.
Odd Duck Science. And we are doing our first Instagram Live, and we are so excited about it.
We're pushing all the buttons.
Pushing all the buttons and trying all the things. So, all right. Why don't you introduce yourself and and who you are and what you're doing here today?
Absolutely. So, my name is Crystal Taylor, but I go by Dr. KT on Odd Duck Science, which is a platform where we talk about all things science, relativeness in the news, how it affects policy, how science has the ability to open doors and also close doors depending on who is going through it and kind of navigating to see what the science says. So, our basic emphasis is to make sure that science is accessible to everyone. And that's simply by just breaking the science down because science is accessible to everyone. So I'm excited to share science and make sure that everyone can understand it.
And Curated Clinical is the organization that we have started. It's a nonprofit that is tied to a lot of the work that I've been doing around clinical trial, community engagement, educating people about clinical trials, how you can be involved, and why it's important for Black and Brown people in particular to be represented not only in participating in trials, but also be at the decision-making table in shaping how clinical trials happen. So, Curated Clinical is that space for you to learn about that, but also to be more involved by contributing your ideas, your creative solutions, and also shaping how the campaigns happen around clinical trials in your communities. So let's get into it. Today we're going to be talking about fibroids. So,
Yes.
Crystal, go ahead.
So fibroids affect about 80% of women by the age of 50. And I feel like fibroids is a topic that we're starting to see a little more in the news, but the information of how they are caused, why they are caused, they're not being like everyone is confused in that space. Like you see the word, you may have said like, oh, a family member or a coworker has mentioned that they've had fibroids, but that's about it. And I want to take this opportunity where we can unpack the science and talk about, all right, let's open up and see what this is about, how we can protect ourselves, how we can work on treatment, and just empower ourselves to make the correct decision when it comes to our body.
So, did you know that fibroids affect up to 80% of women by age 50? 80%. That's insane. um,
Yes. And it's not talked about enough.
no, it makes me think about so many of my friends and family members who've been impacted by fibroids. I had a friend who had fibroids so large that it was like was pregnant and she had to have those. And so her doctor recommended her to get a hysterectomy, right? And so a lot of people, that's usually the solution, especially for Black women. But what she actually advocated for, she did some research and was able to shrink the fibroids first. And I don't know how they were able to shrink them, but they were able to shrink the fibroids first and then do a laparoscopic surgery to remove them without it being super invasive. So that was a much better way for her to be able to save her uterus than having to go through a hysterectomy.
I'm glad you said all that because the key point in that is just advocating, making sure that you are aware.
Oh no, we lost her. We'll have her come back in a second. But so while we're waiting on her to rejoin, fibroids are non-cancerous tumor that can develop in the uterus, and symptoms are heavy menstrual bleeding, back pain, frequent urination, pain during sex, and infertility issues. So, okay, you're back. All right, Crystal.
I was like, look, so I'm so excited about the knowledge. I've kicked myself out.
Yeah.
The point you
I
were
just
making.
told them some of the symptoms of fibroids. So you go ahead and say what you were going to say.
So, and I love that you talk about, we have to talk about the symptoms. And talking about the symptoms is also being aware of your body. And I feel like we grew up in a generation where we didn't have these conversations to say, like, hey, is this normal? Like, I feel like my cycle is a lot heavier. Sometimes we just say, oh, that's just me. That's just me. And in fact, it's not. It's our body's way of saying something is wrong. We need to check in and kind of see what a normal menstrual cycle is like. What is normal to expect? Period cramping. What does that feel like? Should it feel debilitating where I can't do anything? Or am I supposed to feel pain in my legs and my back? Or am I feeling pain during intercourse? Like, what are all these things that I need to talk about to my community and say, you know what, I know these are kind of secretive and I don't want to out myself that I'm having issues, but it's like we have to have these conversations that may be uncomfortable, but they can ultimately lead to our healing. Like your friend was saying, like you have to advocate, and you can't advocate if you don't have the information.
I think, I remember in high school, I had another friend who had really, really, really bad cramps and heavily menstrual bleeding. And we just thought it was a normal thing for women to go through that. But as I've gotten older, we learned that that is not normal. That's a symptom of, like, you're actually, I wish I could remember the name of the book, but there's a book that talks about like your menstruation as the fifth vital sign. That's what it's called, the fifth vital sign. And
Ooh.
it talks about how your menstruation is actually can tell you a lot about what's happening in your body. If you're iron deficient, if you have, if you were stressed that month, if you didn't eat healthy that month, things like that. But also if you have fibroids. And so pay attention to that. Don't just accept pain during menstruation as a normal thing, because it's not.
And I love the fact that you said the pain and how you can look at your menstrual cycle, which I always tell people you have to be an investigator of your own body. You need to check everything. Does this smell right? Does this is my normal smell? Is this flow different than the last flow? Is this heavier? Is this lighter? Because your body has the ability to say, hey girl, something's going wrong and you need to do something about it. It's like flagging on the play, like, hey, let's check in and talk to providers and ask the questions like, I don't think this is normal. This shouldn't be
Right.
something that I'm down for 2 or 3 days or down for a week because I just can't move because of the pain.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So one of the reasons why we chose this topic is because Lupita, and I don't know how to say her last name, so I don't want to butcher it, but Lupita has come out uh, talking about how fibroids have impacted her. And I've also seen from Real Housewives of Atlanta, um, the model, what's her name? Look, this is pregnancy
I
brain. I
don't
can't remember anybody's
realize.
name. But she
I
talked
can't
about,
help
she
you.
actually, yeah, she openly talked about Cynthia Bailey. She openly talked about having fibroids on the show when she was first on the show, and had fibroid surgery while she was on the show. But Lupita has recently come out talking about how she had fibroid surgery, and now she's doing a lot of advocacy around clinical trials, which I'm like, yes, go clinical trials. It's mainstream conversation now. And how it's really important for Black and Brown women to be represented in those clinical trials, because fibroids are more common and severe in Black women. Um, it says that, research indicates that Black women are diagnosed with fibroids approximately 3 times more frequently. So that's, I mean, insane, right? More frequently than any other racial group, I think, is in particular white women. And
Mhm.
by age 35, 60% of Black women will have fibroids compared to 40% of white women. So, this is something that's hitting close to home for a lot of us. So, Crystal, what do you want us to know? You are the scientist, you're the
And
adduct scientist. What do you want us to know about how we can, what are some of the signs and how we can avoid or kind of deal with fibroids?
thing I always want to talk about is when we're talking about fibroids is identifying the science. What actually is a fibroid? And it is a non-cancerous, meaning it is not cancerous tumor. And a tumor is just a mass of cells. Sometimes we hear the word tumor and the first thing we have already written our will and said we're leaving this earth. And that's not the case. Fibroids are simply a non-cancerous tumor. Sometimes they're saying, some research has said that these fibroids tend to accumulate due to large levels of estrogen. And estrogen can come from so many different places. And I feel like today we're kind of tease out some of those areas and why you see excesses of estrogen in certain demographics of people. Like you mentioned before, it's 3 times higher in Black women than it is white. And some good research has been done to kind of, at first place, is chronic stress. Would never believe this. Hint, hint. Stress can be in everything we do. We don't realize how much we're always on the go and we're always trying to push through to get it done, whether it is working, taking care of the kids, taking care of your husband, taking care of loved ones or parents. Just being in your environment causes stress. And in this study, they did a study about 22,000 Black women. What they found was one of the prevalent causes was stress from racism, from perceived racism. So imagine the impact of dealing with microaggressions throughout the workplace, just living that is what that's actually doing to our body. We're internalizing it because we may not speak about, that felt racist or I could feel this. It's like we're internalizing all of that and the body is putting it somewhere else. It's causing our estrogen levels to go up, our cortisol levels, all types of inflammatory signs where our body kind of goes into fight or flight and it always wants to protect us. And so all these alarms start ringing within the body, and we have created almost like this little habitat of stress, and it's affecting our uterus. It's affecting our uterine walls. It's affecting infertility. It's affecting menstrual cycles. Everything that we're doing and involved in, this stress is causing havoc on the body. The second thing I want to talk about is environmental stressors. And my background is toxicology. And so we are always looking at how the environment influences health. I don't feel like that's talked about enough. And one of the things I have always been curious about, a large portion of our community still uses relaxers. Now, don't come at me. I'm just saying it's a fact. There are chemicals in there. And some of these chemicals have been linked to causing high levels of estrogens, and quite a bit of research has been done to show that there may be a link between chemical relaxers and fibroids. And my personal research from the people that are around me that have had problems with fibroids, all of them started using chemical relaxers at a very young age. And we're also seeing that Black women are having these severe symptoms at a very young age. So I know causation and correlation, we're not saying that it causes it, but it's a strong link there that I think needs to be investigated, and more money and clinical trial needs to be put to see how these things are affecting Black and brown women.
Yeah, the other thing that really look, this is something crazy that also really caught my attention was a woman who was talking about how she was really trying to be healthy and she started drinking more water and she was, trying to exercise and do all the right things. And she developed fibroids and she was like, how is this possible? And then she realized that she was drinking nonstop from plastic bottles. And plastic bottles are also linked but with fibroids because of, and you have to tell me if I'm saying this right, phthalates.
Yeah, phthalates. You say that. You got
it. Because they are often found in plastics to make them more flexible. And that's one of those forever chemicals that are found in plastics that are also tied to uterine fibroids. So, that's look, when she told me that story, it convinced me that I needed to switch. Not only once, and then of course later I found out about the forever chemicals, and I really wanted to switch and try to get rid of as much plastic as I could in my household and in what I eat and how I store my food. So I switched to all glass containers. I switched to glass water filter and water jug in refrigerator, glass and metal water bottles, and just trying to make sure that especially not eating out of hot plastic. So that's really the hard line for me. Is like, no, you cook that in plastic, or you store that in plastic. Thank you. That looks so good. I'm not gonna eat it.
And I recently watched this documentary called Plastic, Detox Plastic on Netflix. We're not
Hmm.
plugging it. I'm just saying that it was very insightful. When I look inside of my medicine cabinet, just about all of our products are made in plastic. So it's like, oh, guys, you're saying like get rid of our plastic. It's a task. It's a task, but it's worth it because when it comes to your health, I always say the convenience cost. And so, what are you willing to pay for your health? With me, that means, okay, I'm going to start slowly and surely switching out all the plastic and putting in glass containers, like you said, putting my laundry detergent in a big old mason jar like my grandmother used to have, just
Hmm.
making those small changes to get through. Like, I want as few amount of chemicals possible in my body. Even though we're living in a chemical soup, it's like, let me dilute it as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you said something about forever chemicals. That's my background too. But when I tell you these chemicals, they're great for convenience, but it's costing us dearly because between it being in relaxers, it's also in dye. And I'm speaking for myself too, because clearly I have some color in my hair. But it's these things that we have to be aware of. And I think sometimes we make decisions and we're not fully conscious of it, not because we don't want to, but no one's talking about it. No one's having these conversations to say, why are we seeing this in such young girls? Why are young girls having, all of these debilitating pain and, menstrual cycles that are extremely heavy and having to get hysterectomies at 20 and 21? Why is that the
Yeah.
first thing that we're going to? Why is no one talking about, okay, what can we do to detoxify the body? What can I do that's very practical? Because some people say, okay, you can go on a total green diet or you can go on a total juice diet. And yes, you can do those things because we want you to monitor your health and eat well. But we also want something that's practical that you can do on a daily basis. Switching out glass is something you can do. Cooking with wooden spatulas or stainless steel is something that is very feasible compared to, we're eating all organic for the rest of our lives because you may live in an area where it's food apartheid. There is no fresh fruit near you. So maybe only you have a bodega beside you, or maybe you only
Hmm.
have a Dollar General or corner store where you can get some of those things. So it's like taking practical ways to combat all of the plastic and all the chemicals that we have that are surrounding us.
Another thing, as we were preparing to get pregnant, we're now 37 weeks pregnant. Yay! But for like 2 years, I was doing a lot. And thank you, Dr. KT, because she shared this app with me called Healthy Living app. And that helped me make better decisions when I was in the grocery store. I downloaded that app and then you can scan a barcode and it can tell you how toxic it is or if there's any kind of impacts on your reproductive health or cancer or anything like that. And then at some point it's not as taxing because you start to recognize which brands are clean and which ones aren't. And so then it just becomes, okay, well, I'm just loyal to this brand. But even within that, you got to pay attention because not every product within a brand is going to be the same level of clean. But I switched out my makeup. I switched out, a lot of the plastic stuff. I tried to make sure that the foods and the products that I buy don't have additional chemicals in them. I even stopped using perfume for several years. I actually finally found a perfume that is natural, that doesn't have all of the extra stuff in it, and it's not a hormone disruptor, and it's all natural and it smells amazing. It's very expensive, but but it is. I'm so excited about it. So that's another practical thing you can do is just download the Healthy Living app, and it's free and it's based on the Environmental Working Group standards on most consumer products to make better decisions on your health. What else
And you
can you
said
do to prevent?
You said one other thing, and I know y'all are gonna come at me. Fragrance.
Mhm.
Everyone wants to smell good. And there's also a cost for that. I'm so glad that you said there's other options. And sometimes this is going to cause us to become cosmetic chemists, like our aunties, our grandmothers did when they would put things together and use more of the natural herbs to get different scents. Because again, these fragrances are they can be considered as endocrine disruptors. And what endocrine is, we're talking about the endocrine system when we're talking about hormones. So these chemicals are altering the way that hormones perform on a normal day-to-day basis. And when it puts it out of balance, because remember, the body always wants to be in homeostasis. When it puts it out of balance, then we have irregularities, things, we start getting diseases, we start to get sick. And that's just because the body is out of balance. So if we can help the body stay in balance, we want to go for things that are unscented. And I know you're like, oh my gosh, all of my cabinet is full of it. And I understand it because mine was too. You start slowly kind of teasing away and looking, like from the EWG group. It's really helpful just to go in. And
Yeah.
sometimes you will feel defeated. I'm not going to lie. You're going to be like, I can't have anything. It's just everything is terrible. But there are some good options out there. And again,
Yeah.
it's day by day, it's just small changes.
And not even perfume. It was soap, it was shampoo, conditioner, your laundry detergent, your dishwashing detergent. I mean, everything has these things in it. And so yeah, it can be frustrating, but at the same time, I just did like one product at a time and like finished out the product that I had and then switched and then started doing research to find a cleaner version and then started replacing and buying with that. So don't feel like you need to throw everything out all at once. You can do the Marie Kondo method and just do like one section at a time and do a little bit at a time.
And I think probably the easiest, what everyone could walk away with today, is do not buy water in a plastic bottle. Do
Yes,
not,
especially if it's been
do
sitting
not.
out in the garage. Yeah.
It's been sitting in your car. Don't get you a nice bottle. They have nice stainless steels. You
Dr. KT went out a little bit, but yes, get stainless steel, get water bottle, get glass water bottles. They also have water filters that can try to filter out as much of the stuff as you can. So those are really good. And then I think we also want to talk about how to, treatment options. Don't just accept your doctor telling you to get a hysterectomy. There are, ask for your provider's expertise on treating fibroids, rather than them just going to the whatever quote unquote gold standard of recommendation is. Ask to see if you can get your fibroids shrunken down first before going into surgery, and see if that helps to give you an alternative. And here we go. She's back. And then, like we said, do diet. Food is medicine, and knowledge is power. Anything else you want to leave the audience with, Dr. KT?
No. Oh, probably one thing when you said food is medicine, that's a whole nother episode. But try your farmer's market. And there's a growing trend of everyone trying to grow things in their apartments, in their houses, outside. Just start with a few seeds, cucumbers, tomatoes, strawberries, something that you eat on a everyday basis. Those small changes have a lasting impact.
All right. Well, with that, we're signing off. Thank you so much for everybody who joined in and listened in. We appreciate it. Next time, put some questions and comments in there. We would love to
Absolutely.
answer some of your questions. Thank you so much. Have a good one.